Equality Leadership Series, which is a global PwC initiative. It was piloted in 2014 by PwC US. So this is the third edition of the program. This is the first Aspire to Lead viewing party in Africa.
Doreen, it's a pleasure to have you all here today.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to hear your thoughts and perspectives that we can share with the students gathered here today. But I think first, before we go into that, what do you think about the webcast? Maybe I'll start with Doreen. What jumped out to you?
Well, initially, I was very excited about the fact that the lady who spoke first spoke about the fact that, you know, her mother lived in a little village, but she still thought that she could raise her kids so they could become somebody. And what also came to mind was the fact that even in your little corner, if you try to put your best foot forward and you raise your voice, you will be heard. And we shouldn't be scared to be women. We should always make sure that we're speaking for ourselves and making sure that our voices are heard. So for the first part, yes, that was what came to mind.
Excellent. And you, Kobe?
I think for me it was actually closer to the end, where they started talking about the United Nations He for She campaign. It's the type of campaign that I've waited for years. I remember, so my mother, she worked in the areas of public health, and I remember she was very much a feminist, and I remember having an argument with her once where we were talking about the role of men in the struggle, and she said, well, her argument was that it is the responsibility of fathers to raise their sons better. But I said to her, Mom, if you're going to wait for a man to teach his son how to be a feminist, the feminist movement will be waiting for a very long time. And so we argued back and forth, and then in the end, I made her understand by saying, well, you have raised me as a feminist, and therefore, essentially, this is the point that I'm trying to make. What you need is perhaps a first generation of women to raise a generation of sons who are not afraid of women, who view them as equals, and then you continue. And for me, the He for She campaign, it ties into that kind of thinking where men can actually be feminist, men can actually support and actually be part of the struggle.
And I think that's a very important point. This is not a one-sided struggle. We both need each other. We need men to support women for us to get to the point where we're treated equally and are given the opportunities that we deserve within and also outside of the workplace and also in the home. So I think that was a key point. But now let's get a bit more personal. Everybody wants to know about Doreen, about Kobe. Doreen, you have an illustrious career. I mean, 2 decades in the game, melanin on fleek, to quote Andrea.
That's a new one I need to add to my CV.
I think you can mention that whilst you're on radio on your show tomorrow.
I'll tell you, I'm talking about it tomorrow.
So did you always know you wanted to pursue this kind of career when you were in university? Did you know that you were going to be the queen of the airwaves? Was that your ambition?
Well, I wish I was God and I wish I could have said yes, but I didn't have any idea. But I would like to tell you a little story about myself. Because I started out as a science student because I so much wanted to be like my father, who's a pharmacist. So I studied physics, chemistry, and biology, and I did that for A-level. Unfortunately, I had to write my physics and chemistry exams again because I didn't do well. So, just a couple of weeks before my Second World War, because I was writing physics and chemistry again, I broke my 2 legs in a car accident, and which meant that I lost out of school for a year. And so after the accident, God willing, I got better. I could walk again. I have metals in both legs. Thank God I still walk. But the truth of the matter is, when I was ready to go back to school after that accident, the lecturers went on strike. And so I was at home doing nothing, and I thought, well, there's a new radio station. Let me go try my hands out there. So I went out to Joy FM, and I said, well, I need a job. So they asked me, do you have like a tape or something so we can, and I had nothing. I just went out there as a confident 21-year-old girl who really wanted to do something. And I started out there reading the news, enjoying myself because I knew it was my part-time job. After staying there for a couple of months, I thought, you know what? The lecturers are still on strike. Why don't I just go ahead and do something out of this opportunity that I had? So I decided to learn more on voice training and, trying to get acquainted to everything else that I saw around me. And by the time the lecturers came back and school reopened, I decided that I wanted to be a journalist. That was how it started out for me.
Wow, that's a really interesting story. And I think it also demonstrates that sometimes when negative things happen to you, you can turn them around. You can make use of any opportunity to change your life. So that's really powerful. Thank you, Doreen. Kobe, what about you? The cool guy, the Afro-chic person, the feminist. Tell us how you ended up being a DJ, a blogger, a lecturer, really smart lawyer. How did you get here?
I studied law, not because I wanted to be a lawyer, which is why I didn't become a lawyer. But then why did I study law? I studied law because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Is that what you study when you don't know what you want to do, law?
So sometimes you make a choice based on the options that are in front of you. And as the son of an African parent, your options are...
Law.
I don't think I need to say. Yeah. Lawyer, accountant, doctor, etc. Yeah. So I was good with writing generally, and I think had I had my way, I would have just studied literature. But my mother said, but you're going to finish literature and be literate? You're already literate. You should do law. So I did law. And by the time I finished, again, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do was law. So I did international studies and diplomacy, and I enjoyed that. But I was trying and not really... I still wasn't 100% sure. But in the meantime, what I did decide to do was follow my passions. So these things that I was passionate about, I was very geeky about music. In fact, I was just geeky overall. Everyone talks about me, oh, Kobe is cool. No. When I look at myself, I have a picture, I wish I could show it to you. It's me with big glasses, braces. I was not the cool kid at all. But I really liked music. And I was geeky about music. And so one day, similar to you, I actually went for a job. And it was working in a store, a Puma store. They do kind of trainers and tracksuits and stuff. And again, my mother said, when you're going, you have to wear a suit. And I said, but they do sportswear. She said, you wear a suit. Okay. So then I go and I go for the interview. I walk in with a suit, and immediately they say, you do realize you don't have the job, right? And I said, it's okay. I walk out. On the way out, I see a magazine. I pick up the magazine, and it's a black magazine. There's black men on the front cover. This is in London. And so this magazine looks really interesting. I just give them a call. Same way you walked into Joy FM. I just gave them a call. They said, can you come for an interview today? I went for the interview, and I got the job starting out as an intern. And then when I was there, the guy who was the assistant music editor, Zach, very good friend of mine, he had started DJing, and he was doing a night. And so I would follow him around town, and I would always suggest songs to him. Oh, after this song, you should play this song. And eventually one day he was like, it's okay, I'll just teach you. He knew I had a good collection, so that's how I got into DJing. That led me into radio. I was working with Doreen at Joy FM. I think I was kind of
my sidekick.
Yes, pretty
You used
much.
to send him for coffee and water.
Oh, not necessarily, but he still would tell me, play this song after this one. Yeah, good after that.
Yeah. So I would say, even though I've done all of these things on the side, I've been very lucky in that they happen to come together now. The right job came along, working at Ashesi, teaching text and meaning. And text and meaning requires you to have an understanding not just of books, but of film, of music, and all these things that I was geeky about on the side. So I happen to have the degree, but then I also happen to have the passion. And so the right job came along to just bring it together. And so the advice that I have is follow your passions as well as following the African parent instructions.
I think that's really powerful. If you follow your passion, eventually it will lead you to where you need to be. So what about challenges? I'm sure there were many challenges along the way. I mean, Doreen, yours started with a major challenge, breaking both legs in a car accident.
Breaking both legs was my first challenge. I had to learn how to walk all over again like a child, but I thank God that I braced that. Then I entered into an industry where I was absolutely clueless. The only thing I knew was that I could do something. My confidence alone was my biggest asset. One. The second thing I knew I had to overcome was the fact that I worked in a male-dominated industry. I was young. I was actually the youngest person. I used to work with Eugenia, by the way. She came in a couple of months after I started. And I was the youngest. I was the kid on the block. And so I had to learn everything from scratch. But what I also tried to do in this particular situation to overcome that challenge was I had to try to be one of the boys, because I had to try to understand them, the way they were working, the way their minds worked, because then when you banter with them, you understand them better and you learn from them. I used to kid around with them, but they didn't realize that I was trying to overcome a challenge. I will hang around with them. I'll come back on weekends. I'll sit with them in the studio to teach me how to do this. I knew some music, but I will hang around them, not because I enjoyed hanging around them, because I wanted to learn. But they never realized it. Just like, oh, this kid likes to come out here, so what do you want to do? I said, oh, teach me how to do this, and teach me how to do this. Very soon I was hanging with the technicians because I really needed to overcome a barrier. And so by and large, when there were, stopgaps, they would say, Doreen, go and do this. Doreen, go and do this. Everybody knew that they were pushing me around. I took it in my stride because I said, hey, I'm the kid here. As an African child, when you're the kid in the house, you do all the hard work, right? So I kept doing all the hard work. Before long, when the Mamata, who used to do the show that I was doing, was out of the window, which was about 2 months after I'd started the job, and I was doing her job. And so for me, I was glad to be the little girl in the house, but that also changed my perspective. It opened my mind, and it actually taught me a lot because I was there learning on the job even before I went back to school.
I think that's really powerful, Doreen, because I think a lot of people want to take shortcuts. There are no shortcuts in building your career. Sometimes you have to do all the dirty work. You have to volunteer to do things so you can learn. And I have a similar story. I'm the youngest partner in PwC. I finished university quite young. I started working quite young. So in order to build my career, I had to do different things, learn from people. And similar to you, I would ask people, teach me this. You shouldn't be afraid to show that you don't know something. That's the only way you can learn. So thanks for bringing that point home. I think many people need to know this and understand it and apply it.
Born in London, and then when I was 7 was the first time I moved back. I went to University Primary Cape Coast. Then I did 5 years at Mfantsipim before going back to the UK, finishing sixth form, 2 degrees. And then afterwards, my biggest challenge was the job market. I had killed my degree, did really well, and there just really wasn't work. And so I started thinking about coming home, and a lot of my friends were looking at me like, are you mad? People at home are struggling to get out, and you're struggling to go back. And I remember when I moved down, this was actually a problem because I would go for job interviews and people would not give me the job because they didn't believe that I would stay. They felt that I would return, and 10 years later I'm still here. And so I do remember this being a challenge, and I remember having this discussion again with my mother. The reason I speak about my mother so much is because while I love my father to bits, he moved to Ghana and they separated when I was 7. And so the person who really raised me was my mother. And she always used to tell me that the difference between a mother and a father is often that when you run out of something or you need something done and there are no resources, your father will tell you that there's no resources, whereas your mother will tell you, well, she won't tell you anything, she'll go and look for the resources. I don't think that's completely true. I think some people have magnificent fathers, but my mom was very much there for me. And when I was thinking about whether to move back, she really brought it home for me to tell me that it's possible. And then I moved, and I've been able to make it.
Great story. Thank you, Kobe. So now every successful person, every leader has a person who influenced them in their career. Kobe, who would you say is your key influencer, or who has been your key influencer or mentor, if I can use another word? Or are there so many of them?
See, this is the problem with doing so many things. So you lecture, you blog, you write, you DJ. So for each thing, I think I have different mentors.
Okay, so tell us what you learned from each of your mentors in all the aspects of your career.
Okay. From Ezeko Akimian, Zach, the guy who taught me how to DJ, he taught me how to DJ. And one of the key things was we were DJing a night where the music was, we dealt with underground music, because there's so much more music in the world than what you actually hear on radio often. And so he was the one who we were coming up when, musically speaking, you had the whole neo-soul movement, so D'Angelo, Erykah Badu. The first person to go mainstream from that was, let's say, Lauryn Hill. But these are people who were doing very much positive kind of music. And so the nights that we would do would have that, and I carried that. So I remember by the time I got to, let's say, Joy FM, as a DJ, you're not supposed to play songs on air that have swear words, for example. Not a problem for me, because my stuff is clean anyway. So let's say I learned that from Zach. With regards to academia, I would say Dr. Isiansa, who is now my colleague at Ashesi. She featured on a show at Joy. It was Kweku Sechiado's last show on Joy, and he had 4 women. I remember Dr. Isiansa, Dr. Nanikuya Anidoho of Legon. I don't remember the other 2, but I was running late and I listened to the show, and then I got there and I knew Dr. Anidoho, and she introduces me to Isiansa, who says, "What do you do?" And then I say, "Well, I do everything." "What do you mean everything?" "Well, I'm a journalist here at Joy. I'm also a DJ. I produce. I do the social media." "Okay, come and see me." She was doing human resources. And so she sat me down and she was the first person to tell me, "You should think about academia." And I laughed in her face. And it was about maybe 2 or 3 years later, and maybe 1 job later, that the opportunity came up at Ashesi. And she was actually on my interview panel. And now she's actually my next door neighbor. We actually share a wall. Yeah. So from her, I simply learned that sometimes the things that you're looking for, they're not always apparent to you. You might have a blind spot, and somebody else can see it for you.
Yeah, great story. Thank you, Kobe. Doreen, mentor?
I probably have had a lot, simply because I started my career at a very young age. And so I'll say first, my parents, in as much as they didn't like the idea that I had to quit pharmacy and come and do journalism, they were still there for me, and they are still my biggest cheerleaders. Whenever I go down, they are like, "Look, you got to get your act together. You can't do X or Y or Z." And I'm also fortunate to the extent that I realized that I have a number of friends who are older than I am. They work in different fields, be it lawyers, doctors, academia, human resource people, etc. And I hang around with them quite a lot. And so they influence my career a great deal, because they would advise me and they would explain to me a lot of things that I probably weren't aware of, or a number of things that I could do about my career or to my career that could make me better. And so hanging out with them, listening to them, and heeding the advice has helped a great deal.
Great. I think the key point here is that we should surround ourselves with people who can help us move forward, and everybody needs somebody or some people that they can learn from. So you need to identify the areas where you want to grow and find somebody who you think can take you to that next level. Okay. So now, just before I wrap up this session, key milestones in your career. Those moments that if you were plotting a graph, you would asterisk them as key milestones, key points in your career. Maybe I'll start with Doreen.
The first one, I'd probably say be yourself. That's the only way you will find yourself. When you are yourself, you can do any and everything. If you have confidence in whatever you're doing, you can do a lot of things. If you educate yourself, travel wide, read any and everything. Sometimes I tell people, sometimes my eyes see and my brain absorbs things that I don't realize that I know. I was talking to him about how I found out that he had lost his mother. I found out in a very bizarre situation because I was just reading. Education is amazing. I love school. If you told me to go back to school today and I could pay for it, I will go right back. Education takes you any and everywhere. You can live in a world where you probably don't know anybody, but only because you are educated, you can communicate, you can express yourself, you can do so many things. And it doesn't always mean school knowledge. It's also about you just reading wide and traveling wide and just educating yourselves, doing the things that make you happy. For me, one big thing that I have taken through my career with me is humility. It's an amazing trait I learned from my parents, and I don't know what I would be if I wasn't a humble person. I don't know how to be, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know how to be bigger than myself.
Yeah.
I'm just me, and I love being me. And if you can do that, and you can be humble, and you can respect people, and you can treat them as such, it helps a long way. Another thing is being assertive, being open-minded one, and also paying attention to little details. Sometimes you can overlook a lot of things, but sometimes it is the little detail that takes you to the next level. Be discerning. It's another thing, it's another trait that you would probably pick up along the way that could help in your future career. So for me, these are some of the things that I have learned in my 20 years of my career, and probably before that, that has actually helped me propel myself from one level to the other.
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. I think one thing that I picked from what you said is that learning actually should never end. And I read somewhere, again, like you, my eyes are kind of bigger than me. I'm always reading things. That they have open libraries in particular countries. I can't remember which countries. And there are no books in the library, but they are human beings. So you go sit with a person, and the person tells you things. And that is how you read, by listening to the person's story. We actually learn better because we learn visually and also by what we hear, by talking to people. Right, talking to the right people, understanding what they have gone through, or even attending sessions like this, because I've learned a lot from what Doreen has said, personally, and also what Kobe has said. So Kobe, any key lessons or milestones in your career that you'd like to share?
I think I've already mentioned passion, but I want to go in on it a little bit. My mother was somebody who, she started out a Ghanaian student like yourselves. And she ended up going to the UK on a scholarship to study nursing. And as she was a nurse, she heard about, in fact, no, she didn't hear, she was called in, and she was in the room when a woman who had undergone female genital mutilation was brought in. And they had to kind of bring this baby out by cesarean section. And everyone in the room is looking at her as the one African present. Like, what is this? And she's like, I don't know. She's from Ghana. It's not prevalent here, but there are parts of Africa where it is very prevalent. Like 90% of women have undergone this in Sudan, etc., etc. She would eventually write the first textbook about this. She would eventually become acting head of women at the World Health Organization. She would win an OBE from the Queen. She would win awards upon awards. And it became her life's work. She was passionate about it. And in the beginning, I was following my passions too. I'm into geeky things like film and music and just popular culture. But at the time, I didn't know that there was something called popular culture. All I knew was I'm into this thing generally. And I have followed that passion consistently, even when I've not known what I want to do. So the advice that I would like to give is advice that Ashesi students will be familiar with. When you are driving, this is for the UST people, KNUST. When you are driving from Accra to Kumasi at night, your car I don't care how powerful your car is, the light is not going to shine with you parked in Accra all the way to Kumasi. You can't shine that light more than a couple of meters ahead of you. But if you keep on driving, the light moves with you. And so you see a little bit ahead, and then you get to that point, and then you see a little bit further ahead, and then you get to that point. So the advice that I have for you guys is, sometimes you won't see all the way, but all you need to do is see as far as your next set of options. When you get there, decide and let your passion be your guide. And then it will continue getting there until you get to Kumasi, the promised land.
Thank you very much. Yes, let your passion be your guide. And I want to thank Doreen and Kobe for a really insightful and exciting panel discussion. Thank you so much for making time to be here. I think we're going to do some Q&A.
I'm a confident person. I like doing my thoughts. So most of the times it happens that I'm the one always doing the work and they are not really contributing. At times it really disturbs me because at the end of it all, I will not be praised for what I did. And then the marks will be shared among all of us. And when you get to a time where you want to put them to their toes, like they look at you and they ask, why are you like that? Because all the ladies in my class are lady-like people, like, hello, hi, but I'm not that type. Because when you're doing something and it's not really according to what you're supposed to do, I like to put you to your position. So I would like to ask, what am I supposed to do? Should I continue with it? Are there things I'm supposed to stop or, I don't know, just advise me. Thank you.
You're the one who is learning and writing everything. So take advantage of that situation and make sure that whatever you're learning and teaching the rest of your friends, you are learning it well, because your style will shine when you come to write the paper. Now that paper you will write will have Theresa written on it, not your friends. And they will mark Theresa's paper. And Theresa will be the one with the knowledge. So you will win in the end. So it's okay to be the one doing the lecturing all the time. It just makes you a better Theresa, okay?
I understand that group work is one of the worst assignments because you always have that one person. I noticed that all of you were like, because everyone here knows about that. Either you're someone here who you're one of the boys, or so I know about this, and I completely agree with what Doreen is saying. I think that for now you are thinking about the group work, and that's cool. But think about after the group work, after you leave, and with group work you study how to you learn how to work with other people, and it also shows you how imperfect teams are when you go out beyond the academic world.
The passion or the drive for most students is knowing that when you come out of school, the opportunities to make use of your skills are very limited or they don't exist. So my question is, do you switch to something else which has more opportunities after school, or you stick to that one passion you have and hope to create something? Thank you.
When I was working as a manager at a market research company, around that time, I was DJing on the side at Vibe FM for fun. And I wasn't even taking any pay for that or anything like that. By the time I found myself in a position, I was actually speaking to the client of that market research company, who, as it so turns out, was a director at Joy FM. And we negotiated for some time, and then he asked me, have you ever done radio before? I said, yeah. I DJ on the side on Vibe FM. He said, give me a call, which is how I ended up at Joy.
Some people came in with BA in chemistry. Some people came in with BA in economics and engineering, but they did radio. The only thing they did was that they embraced an opportunity that they had. It's good that you know more than the job that you're being offered, but if you put your best to that job that you're being offered at that particular time, it takes you to the next level and the next, because you are actually expanding your knowledge and you're also building on your experiences, because those experiences you probably might not get it in any other setting than the setting that you found yourself in.
All these things cultivate a certain part of you. So in my career, yes, I'm an accountant now. I studied economics in university. I didn't know I was going to be an accountant. I just knew I enjoyed finance. I enjoyed economics. I used to work at Next. You all know Next. I was folding men's shirts in menswear. I was selling shirts at the till. So I know how to fold a men's shirt properly. Okay. I have also worked in a supermarket, like ShopRite, when I was in university. When I came to Ghana, before I worked in PwC, I actually taught at Ashesi University for 2 semesters because I wanted to see what that was like, and I enjoyed it. Right, so there are so many experiences that make you who you are, and you may get to do what you like to do in a different setting. Kobe's mother went to London, or to the UK, as a nurse. She didn't know that she was going to be an FGM, female genital mutilation activist, and was going to be a very senior person in the WHO. So this is where your passions and your career can take you. Embrace all the opportunities that you can get, and also take them on. There are people who are volunteering here today, not PwC people, other people, just because an opportunity for them to learn and also experience something different. So that's really important, to open yourself up to different opportunities so you can actually, create your own job roles if there's nothing for you out there. Start your own business as well. Okay, Eugenia, you want to say something?
I work with students from University of Ghana, KNUST, who have cottoned on to the concept of volunteerism. And I'm happy that when Aisha asked how many of you here would volunteer and not take money for it, a lot of you put your hands up. So Doreen was telling you I used to work with her. I walked into Joy FM, another confident. I think what it is hunger makes you confident. How many of you agree? Yeah, when you're hungry, you will find the confidence because you know there's nothing for you to eat. What do you have to lose? If they say no, that's it. I walked into Joy FM with a story. I was doing my national service and I met an orphan boy who had, then it was the SSS system. And I knew what education had done for me. So I said, I think that, you should take him in. And they said, well, it costs money. I said, I will go to Accra and raise money. I didn't know how. But I just said, I know some mobile people, and there's a new radio station in Accra. If I went there and I asked for an interview. So I walked into Joy and said, I want to see Tommy Annan Paulson. Do you have an appointment? I said, no, I don't. But it's very important he listens to me. The confidence with which, you express your hunger is what will get you through. So I finished the interview, spoke about the boy. He got people to take care of him. He got into the school. And as I was leaving Joy FM, I was offered a job. The then sales or marketing manager, Maxwell Ansah, called me and said, have you ever done radio? I said, no, I'm actually still doing my national service. He says, well, we've got a job for you as an intern. We won't pay you. I said, it's okay.
So Eugenia Techi mentioned because she took us to church, yes.
Until we see you next year, make new friends, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you once again.